Hey everyone, it's been 2 minutes and I haven't been raped yet. Because you know what? I'm just not one to nitpick about details. Stop playing. Break free from your chains, to break free from your cage. What we don't want to do is go back to a traditionalist world. Hi, I'm Davison. Behind me here, where I sometimes put a plant, I just want to show everybody who donated to my transcript campaign that I have now received, and all these stacks are the thing I now have to read. I've now received my first transcript that I ordered, so thank you all for your donations. It is being used for what I said it was going to be used. Let me check my chart here. We've spent $375. That's all this cost. It's a lot of paper. And I still have over 600 left, so I can get at least one more transcript for this. So today I'm going to have a completely off-the-cuff, non-scripted video. Hopefully this goes all right. And it may end up, as a result, being a little bit longer than usual. But I had a conversation on Skype last night with somebody, I'm not going to name them. They presented to me a Zen story, Zen Buddhist story, that they thought explained some of the criticisms of MGTOW. And I was really tired last night, so I couldn't really engage in the conversation. But the stuff that I wished I could have explained last night, I'm going to just do as a video. So for the person I was talking to, this isn't a criticism of you, because I'm going to acknowledge right now that I'm not 100% sure of exactly how you are using this story, but ultimately the story has a lot of content to it. So the Zen Koan, or analogy here, is that you have two monks walking down a path, and an elder and a younger. They've taken a vow to never touch a woman. They, on their journey down this path, come across a woman who is in front of a lake or a body of water and says, "I need help to cross this. Can you please help me cross this water?" So the elder carries the woman on his shoulders across the water, puts her down, and returns, and they continue down the path. Sometime later, the younger monk turns to the older one and says, "What the fuck, dude? Like, you know, what have you done?" And the elder turns to him and simply says, "When I put her down on the other side of the water, I left her behind. Obviously, you have not." So when this analogy or this story was brought up, we were having a discussion about men in the MGTOW movement who are really angry with women and the situation they're faced with in our current society. And they spend a lot of time on MGTOW forums and such, bitching about women, calling them cunts, and saying, you know, expressing anger to the situation. And that if these men were more enlightened, they would just be able to say, you know, "I've left her behind." And they should be able to just move on and let go of their anger. Now, my first reaction to this story being brought up was, and I'd like to point out that it is somewhat shaming to try and apply this story to the situation of men who've been legitimately harmed by women and have to go through a healing process. Setting that aside, because, you know, I was really tired and I don't know how he was intending on using this story, ultimately, you have to first look at it, because it's a Zen Buddhist story, from the perspective of what these types of stories intend to do. And as you become more enlightened in Buddhism, you can revisit stories and you can see them on different levels. And, you know, the temptation is to take it and make it mean what you want it to mean, which is what I think this person is doing. The core value of this story is to say that when you're a mature and wise person, you can leave behind small moments that a lot of people tend to carry with them. And people do this. Like, you carry with you things that happen to you, things that bother you, that maybe nobody else but you remembers, and there might be small moments, and you torture yourself endlessly over these small moments, right? Now, in this story, the elder is aware that something that's a momentary instance, something that's a small moment, you must learn to mentally discipline yourself to leave it behind. That's not the problem that men in the MGTOW movement are facing. This is not a small, instantaneous, you know, situation, something they chose to do one thing and now they're going to torture them forever. over their choice in that situation. This is a problem that is the world surrounding men right now is an ongoing problem that they have very little control over. In fact, the more and more feminism infects our institutions like the justice system and so on, the less control they have over it, and the more it's they're being subjected to complete injustice and a loss of civil rights. So then we can break it down. We had a secondary argument about whether or not you can just take the shallow surface version of this story and apply it to MGTOW, and that's where I was just too tired to look at it. And I do agree with him that it is a really interesting scenario. I was saying at the time that the core principle of the story had nothing to do with men or women. It could have been any scenario, and that the actual story was meant to say, don't carry small things with you forward. And actually, to complete that, you have to understand that the elder in this story is a man who has made a lifestyle choice for himself. And his decision to temporarily touch a woman, and that was the ban that he's supposed to have, you know, the one of the rules that he's supposed to comply with. His decision to touch this woman is a temporary thing in which he touched her, and it was a singular moment, and then he walked away and he returned to a path without women on it, right? So it doesn't apply in that manner, but essentially he is a complete person, and his momentary decision to do this thing for whatever reason did not change for him who he was, because he was a solid whole person. And MGTOW are trying to get men to that point where they can interact with women and not be affected by it. It doesn't change who they are, because they have learned how to define themselves, how to identify themselves, and be complete people without the approval of women. So that's definitely, I would compare MGTOW to this elder, wiser monk. And that if you manage to go through all the phases of MGTOW, and there are actual phases to it, there's the grief phase, there's the anger phase, all these things in healing, and then you reach an ultimate goal where you can be around women and not be affected by them. And that's kind of what this elder monk is doing. But the way the story was being presented was that MGTOW who are angry at women and MGTOW who are venting that anger are like the younger monk who just aren't wise enough. And that if they were wise enough, they could have relationships with women and they could still walk away. And so now I'm going to go into the actual, like, literal, you know, the choice of the scenario with a man touching a woman and being involved with women and so on. What MGTOW is doing is taking the story back to the very beginning and looking at the situation of a woman saying, I need help crossing this body of water. So why is the man capable of walking through this water and the woman isn't capable of walking through the water? None of this would have happened if the woman was capable of making that journey herself. I actually think this elder monk in the story is not all that wise. He's getting there, a little bit wiser perhaps than the younger one, in the practice of the mental discipline they're trying to convey. But MGTOW is saying this is a problematic situation in the first place, because that woman is not going to be helped by having somebody carry her across the water. A lot of Buddhist stories actually have the monk doing things like taking the person and throwing them into the water and telling them to deal with the situation themselves. Because out of true compassion, compassion isn't empathy and just feeling sorry for people, it's actually trying to help them. And is this monk helping this woman by carrying her across the water instead of teaching her how to swim if the water was that deep, or teaching her how to dress more appropriately if she's going out into an environment that is likely to present a body of water in front of her that she needs to walk through? So MGTOW is demanding that women learn how to walk through the water themselves. And if they can do that, then MGTOW won't have to, make these strange decisions about whether or not to break vows of some sort or another, because they're going to be living in a world with equals, people who are actually as responsible as they are. Not only did this monk carry the woman through the water, he did something more difficult by having her on his shoulders. So the man is now not just teaching the woman how to walk through the water herself. He's not just helping her across the water. He's making his journey across the water more difficult. Now, leaving the woman behind. When he walks away from the situation, he's walking away from it because he is mature enough to not let himself get involved with that woman and her fucking problems. So he's gone back to a path that does not involve women. And the fact that he chose to touch a woman is just a minor detail, because he only touched her temporarily. He only felt a little bit sorry for her, where he should have been more compassionate, just thrown her in the water. He felt a little bit sorry for her, so he broke a vow and touched her, but now he's going back to his path in which women are not involved. And MGTOW are kind of like the monks. And, there's different levels of MGTOW which have been discussed. Those are all positive paths. There's actually, I've read this thing on levels of MGTOW, and the only thing I actually think is really important to define is the 0 level of MGTOW. And that is the level of MGTOW where you've heard about it, and it sounds really fucking cool, so you'd like to be a part of it, but you don't understand it. And I actually, not to make him feel bad, only he knows who he is here, but I actually think that the person trying to use this analogy and the way he was trying to use this monk analogy is a great example of somebody who is just a 0 level MGTOW. He's heard about it and he wants to be involved in it, but he doesn't get it. Now for the rape joke of the week. A woman about to be raped says, "Think of my children." The man says, "What kind of twisted fuck do you think I am?"